This is, I think, a very interesting time in our presentation because our next speaker, I just think has an incredible background, but is just doing some fundamentally great things. The overarching goal for the Center of Culinary Medicine is to evoke change through every aspect of the food service industry, but by being actively mindful of how to provide its nutrient-dense foods, how it's being prepared, how we empower the next generation of chefs, food manufacturers, farmers, dietitians, and physicians. Leading the way in this change, as this change agent, is Dr. Warner Absenger. Yep, we have our own culinary physician. And Dr. Absenger, as in speaking with them, just brings a host of just wealth of information, but also just leading the pursuit of changing, of being the change agent of food as medicine. Warner Absenger holds a PhD in mind-body medicine. Dr. A engages a rigorous contemplative practice. Consequently, Dr. A's regular meditation practice and evidence-based approach to mindfulness uniquely qualifies him as a mindfulness teacher. Prior to his current pursuits in contemplative medicine, Dr. A's earned a master's degree of science in human nutrition and worked as a classically trained chef. Dr. A's passion, in essence, focused on internationally tending to the mind, brain, and gut trifecta. Separate as they may seem, their origins are the same. They thus do profoundly influence each other, and that they may benefit the optimum health and wellness. Consequently, on WarnerAbsenger.com, Dr. A aims to create research and educate readers about mindfulness, contemplative practice sprinkled with culinary medicine, and naturally focus on gut-brain axis. Dr. A, just tremendous welcome to you today, and I look forward to hearing some more insights of how you're connecting with not only the students, but also being an advocate of showing how the mind, the body, and the spirit are all connected, and approaching this in a mindful manner. Dr. A?
Yeah, Chef Neff, thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and it's great to be here. I'm part of the Culinary Medicine and Food Service Roundtable, and while most of the introduction focused on what I perhaps do in my spare time, I am the program director for the Sekia Institute for Culinary Education, and this is, I guess, all the activities you just shared help me inform my job here at the Sekia Institute to bring culinary education to students and think about culinary education. So thank you so much again for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. And so today I want to spend my 15 minutes with showcasing real cases of why Chef Neff and Dr. Holland perhaps sandwich culinary education in a virtual roundtable between world-class chefs, scientists, and government agencies. I hope to show that culinary education needs to consider how we enlighten the next generation of chefs who may have to focus on helping solve some of our most pressing problems when we look at food's role in health. The fact is inescapable that chefs can have a tremendous influence and shape how we approach food in public health, chronic disease, disaster relief, and yes, space, the final frontier. And I have some pretty lofty goals here laid out for you. And before you accuse me of delving into too many Michael Pollan books, growing magic mushrooms at home and experimenting with the mind-altering effects of them, I invite you to bear with me, because everything that just mentioned is already happening and chefs are involved in that. So before we do that, however, I think it always helps to give a little bit of background information. So we need to turn the clock back to a 19th century philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer. for a guiding principle that I think is useful when considering higher education goals and to churn out problem solvers and critical thinkers. You may focus on the English translation as I practice my German with you, but daher ist die Aufgabe, nicht sowohl zu sehen, was noch keiner gesehen hat, als bei dem, was jeder sieht, zu denken, was noch keiner gedacht hat. So essentially, what we are trying to do here is to instill this principle, to bring this principle to culinary education, to educate the next generation of chefs. And Chef Neff already shared much of what I'm all about, so I won't delve into too much here in my bio. I would also be amiss if I did not quickly tell you about all of the programs we have. So we have two culinary.
Chef, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. It looks like your slides might not be advancing. Sometimes Zoom does that. It can be a little wonky.
Is it? Are they not?
Yeah, we're still on the first slide.
Oh, that's not good.
Try clicking in the left panel there and see if that doesn't advance.
That's what I did.
Yeah, it's
so Carrie, can you take over?
Yeah, maybe Carrie can take over. Sometimes Zoom can be kind of wonky with slide decks. Which slide should you be on now?
I should be on slide and the Schopenhauer slide, guiding principles.
Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. It would be silly for us to sit here on slide 1 while I'm talking and flapping my lips. So we'll talk briefly about the Schopenhauer's principle. So next slide, please. So next slide, please, Carrie. Very good. So now we are where we need to be. So we have 2 associate's degrees in one in culinary arts, one in pre-hospitality management. We have 4 certificates in the pre-hospitality pathway degree. The numbers in bold that you see are our current students taking at least 1 class with us for this semester. Next slide, please, Carrie. So now we have the nitty-gritty out of the way, and let's dive right into the actual cases of why I know culinary education needs to embrace a new role in educating future food service professionals and chefs. And I know we can play a role in individual and population health. Next slide. I'm going to spare you the doing it took to bring culinary medicine programming to Spectrum Health in Grand Rapids. But Dr. Christy Arts, Dr. Leanne Moriello, who were at Spectrum Health at the time, and I sat through many stakeholder meetings before we were able to pilot a residency program in 2016. So now 6 years later, the Spectrum Health Culinary Medicine program has become quite successful. There are mandatory kitchen stints for physicians in family medicine residency, internal medicine residency, pediatric residency programs, as well as for cardiovascular fellows. Carrie, next slide, please. So this, of course, brings me to some of our graduates. So we have some alumni, Chef Suedi and Chef Sherman, who literally took the proverbial bull by the horns, getting involved very early in culinary medicine cooking classes while they were students at our program. The moment Spectrum Health leased its own teaching kitchen, Chef Suedi was hired as the chef for the program. And a few years later, Chef Sherman joined her at Spectrum Health Teaching Kitchen. Now, both of them are responsible for all teaching activities in this kitchen, whether it's for medical residency programming or for public programs. Next slide, please, Carrie. There. So when Chef Struik came to us, do GRCC, she already had earned a bachelor's in dietetics and a master's in human nutrition. But she felt that her culinary skills were inadequate to help her clients and patients. As a graduate of our personal chef program, Chef Struik's latest accomplishment was collaborating with a local group of physicians at Root Functional Medicine who prescribe foods to their patients. Chef Struik developed a weekly meal prep plan, preparing meals with fresh, nutrient-dense ingredients for pickup or shipment to patient stores within Michigan. Chef Heather Stott is an alumna who showed an early interest in baking and pastry. Specifically, she was interested in gluten-free and vegan baking. And so Chef Stott took her culinary education and her culinary skills. She is taking them to new levels by studying food science at MSU with a minor in entrepreneurial studies. So while we have many students and graduates who I believe exemplify Schopenhauer's principle of not so much seeing what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. These four chefs have really applied this principle to food as medicine as they came to us for culinary education and as they went out in the world to practice the craft and trade. Next slide, please. And as an adjunct faculty teaching nutritional biochem course at Saybrook University, I'm also mentoring PhD students through the PhD studies. Carrie's project grabbed my attention because she was working on a research project, or is going to work on a research project, where she can investigate the effects of a primarily plant-based, high-fiber, whole food diet on the gut microbiome and the sickness behavior of breast cancer survivors. So while we have to hash out many details yet, Carrie is still pretty early in her PhD studies. One aspect of this study will perhaps also looking at meals prepared by local chefs where those breast cancer survivors are, from recipes with strict nutritional guidelines that we provide. Again, this would tie chefs and food to deliver nutrition RX in healthcare. And next slide, please. So when we talk about healthcare, we also look at when big things are happening on the planet and disaster strikes. Next slide, please. So some of the biggest challenges during crisis in providing delicious, wholesome, nourishing meals, not only to the people affected by the disaster, but also provide first responders with healthy nutrition meals under the direst of circumstances. Those are the challenges when disaster strikes. And so we are proud to have been selected by World Central Kitchen to be the site for their inaugural chef relief training this past November. Through the two-day training, we were able to take faculty and staff from GRCC and chefs hailing from local restaurants, hotels, and hospitals in this intensive training. The course all covers the history, standard operating procedures, and protocols WCK Kitchen has in place to safely and effectively provide meals for people in need in the aftermath of a disaster. The really cool thing is that we now have 16 chefs who earned the WCK certification to lead emergency food operations, regardless whether a WCK team member is present. Next slide, please. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about space, the final frontier, and humanity's existential crisis, and how chefs and future chefs play a role in the future of human colonization of Moon and Mars. Next slide. As one can imagine, living in microgravity for an extended period of time is quite different than living on Earth. the body is going through quite some traumatic changes. And if this colonization is to be successful, we need to find ways to mitigate those changes. And yes, NASA says food plays an integral part, not only in physical health, but also in the mental health of astronauts. And I think that's very important, because we technically could feed the astronauts with synthetic foods out of a box, and that would be good. But their mental health is going to suffer. Next slide, please. On this image to the right, or on this slide to your right, you see Tristan and Hannah, two high school students from the Ottawa Area Intermediate School District during the 2021 and 2022 NASA Hunch preliminary judging event. The picture on the bottom shows our competition from Michigan, the RCTC Ypsilanti Culinary Arts and Bakery Science high school students who traveled to do the judging event. So what is the NASA Hunch Challenge? The NASA Hunch Challenge challenges students, high school students, with their mentors to think about cooking for microgravity and cooking for people living in space. Students need to do research on how that may work. They need to create a brief video, and they create a dish for judges to be able to try, which needs to adhere to strict nutritional guidelines. So the preliminary judging competition selects from, this past year, there was 46 schools participating, I think. From those 46, the preliminary judging competition selects 10 finalists. The 10 finalists get to go to Johnson Space Center in Houston for the final cook-off in front of NASA astronauts, NASA employees, International Space Station employees and staff. And the winning team's recipe gets prepared by NASA and actually flown to the International Space Station to nourish astronauts living there. Next slide, please. The top right image shows Olivia, Grace, Elizabeth, and Chris from the Kent Career Technical Center receiving the 2020-21 NASA certificate. The image on the right middle shows Victoria and Tom, GRCC students, participating in our inaugural 2019-20 NASA Hunch Challenge. This year's challenge, so I like that Chef Boulou mentioned soups and how they are just good for body and soul. So this year's challenge is a hearty ethnic soup or stew with the nutrition guidelines posted here. Those are mainly focusing on macronutrients, but also, like we said, students have to focus on other aspects of nutrition and how living in microgravity affects the human body and how we can use food to mitigate those effects. Next slide, please. So let's talk about edible packaging. What you see to your left is a bag used in long duration space vehicles to transport and protect hardware and instrument for space missions. So the bag is made out of polyester with styrofoam-like materials functioning as the structural walls. NASA has tasked students this year to develop edible products that will replace the carbon-based foam with comparable structural properties food can bring to withstand the harsh conditions and G-forces during launch and protect the contents in space until being used. So that's one aspect of the project. Next slide, please. The next portion is the design aspect. So design goal is to develop a structural food supplement that can withstand launch forces and keep what is contained safe. Additionally, the food should act as a supplement supportive of the gut microbiome. NASA encourages students to think about using minimal, non-food materials to contain the structure of the food supplement. Additionally, NASA has told us that it would be advantageous to NASA if we just could make the whole bag out of edible materials. So quite the challenge, and I have no idea how we are going to wrap our heads around this project yet for the next 2 semesters, but we'll attempt to do it anyway. Next slide, please. So I think because I covered a couple of NASA Hunch projects in this talk, and we are talking about a roundtable, bringing people together, I think it's only fitting that I aim to wrap this talk up by introducing you to, if you're not heard of him, theoretical physicist David Bohm. Dr. Bohm was a leading authority to quantum mechanics. He co-authored the book Science, Order, and Creativity, from which I draw in closing out this presentation, because it kind of hits home for me. And the reason why it hits home for me is that he spells out how we must engage in dialogue. When we engage in dialogue, we must let go of our ego and look at how those we are dialoguing with are generous with their time and expertise and kind enough to help us fill gaps in our own knowledge. Next slide, please. And so with that, it's time to thank you, the audience, for being here, listening to flapping my lips for about 15 minutes. Dr. Tim Harlan, Chef Neff, Cecilia Hetfield, Chef Camp, Chef Totson, my co-presenters, and everyone else who had a hand in organizing this fantastic event. Again, I have to reiterate, the virtual Culinary Medicine and Food Service Roundtable is an extremely important example for shaping a dialogue across disciplines to engage our stakeholders in workforce development, to attract, train, and retain a new cadre of chefs. Additionally, events such as this contribute to helping workforce development programs think about potential gaps in our curriculum to foster a climate of awe and inquiry where students will want to come and study. Next slide, please. And ultimately, the goal is, of course, to equip better food service professionals with the education, the culinary, and the soft skills they need to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees regarding our most pressing food-related problems, nutrition, healthcare, and beyond. Next slide, please. And with that, thank you again for allowing me to be here. My contact information is right there, and I hope I see many of you at 1:15 again for the roundtable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chef Warner. I really enjoyed your presentation. I thought that it was very important that you showed exactly how the opportunities of growth and career development is so important at every level.